Hi, welcome to the fourth introductory video of this section. In this section we will try to understand how did emotions evolve and who was the first person to think about this process. It was Charles Darwin in 1872 and he wrote a very interesting book called Expression of the Emotions in Men and Animals, in which he tried to understand why, not only why men and animals have emotions, but also why they express them. It's a very important aspects of this event, of the nature of this event. So from his studies and other guys since then, we know that emotions are useful for survival purposes, but at the same time we know that they're very useful for social aspects of living interaction. First of all, they are innate, they are hardwired. Most of them we cannot choose to feel comfortable or uncomfortable with playing inputs that affect our nociceptors in our body, although we can train our body in order to react in some way or another one to this input. But anyhow, emotions make possible the design of strong social aspects that explain why humans and other social animals live together. Initially, for example, the care of the offspring, also the creation of long-term sexual bonds that are again useful for care of the offspring, the existence of the compassion among the relatives or among the members of a group. It's one of the basics of several religions, for example, the universal compassion among Buddhist thinkers and practitioners. And also, for example, the modulating of social hierarchies, and finally, the existence of sensory, motor, and emotional processes by empathy that are based, as you remember, on neural processes that happens into our heads. So emotions are useful for several things. From a survival perspective, we can find two big groups: negative emotions that create defenseful activities, and also on the other side positive emotions that make possible to reinforce actions that are positive for that being. Then when we think how did emotions evolve, there is a moment in which emotions happen just at a natural or biological level, that it was before the beginning of the social interaction and even before of the symbolic moment in which our ancestors became the sapiens, more or less 100,000 years ago. And we find now that emotions are modes of function shaped by natural selection, and they involve physiological, cognitive, motivational, behavioral, and subjective responses to things that are happening to us. Which is a mechanism that allow social emotions? It's very simple. It's the existence of special neurons called mirror neurons that are localized into the F5 brain area, the anterior interparietal area, and they make possible the sensory motor mimicry that it's necessary for a being in order to understand what is happening in that entity, and it makes possible that we make predictions about what will happen if we see somebody that it's working toward us, we can calculate how long will take him or her to arrive until us, and then to prepare reactions to this process. And also this mirror neuronal system make possible the creation of internal states in which we can feel sad because we see somebody that is feeling something negative. This is the reason by which we go to the cinema, to feel what are feeling another guys. We call this process empathy. At the same time, we can find that beyond all the biological constraints and that really shape the emotional events, we have different ways, cultural ways of deal with emotions, and at a certain point, emotions are far from really direct responses from the environment. They are processed inside the brain with more cultural information that make possible to understand this situation in a very different perspective according to your cultural background. And even exists some emotional states in which there are not possible translations or only belong to a specific culture in the world. For example, and we can obtain these evidences from ethnographic works in which exist untranslatable emotions like amai in Japan. The necessity for indulgent dependence it's very, very complex to describe briefly. Or the saudade in Portugal, the feeling of longing for something or someone that you love and which is lost. Or the Schadenfreude in Germany, it's the pleasure derived by seeing another's misfortune. Or litos in Czech language, or Tosca in Russian. There are cultural specific ways to understand internal states, and consequently they are tagged and they are conceptualized in a different and specific way. So trying to put in order all the previous ideas, we can understand emotions like an evolutionary strategy. They are at the same time shared among humans, allowing social actions. They are more obviously more living entities that are social and that are not human. And also the notion of empathy as a very important neural mechanism that makes possible that important aspect of the sensory motor imitation, but not also sensory motor, but also emotional interaction and understanding that makes possible the emergence of attitudes, of actions, of intentionality, and the recognizing process of these actions in other beings. And finally, we can understand the cultural forces like very important ways of shaping and creating emotional dynamics and meanings for the entities that are under that cultural environment. Thank you so much. I hope to see you in the next video.